We've all been there. You go to use a new system for the first time and you can't figure out where to start. The good news is that in Totara you can prevent this problem with user tours. User tours provide a guided walkthrough of a screen, stepping a user through the elements on screen and providing guidance. Before we get started, it's important to note that user tours are an experimental feature in Totara. There are a range of ways the user tour can be used on your site, so this allows you to experiment and see what works for you. I want to create a user tour for the catalogue, so that users who are new to my site understand what they're looking at. To get started, I'll go to the Quick Access menu and select Development, then Experimental, and select User Tours. Here I have the option to create a new user tour, or import one I've previously created elsewhere. I'll create a new tour. On this page I'll create the settings for my tour, before adding my content. I'll start by giving the tour a name. Perhaps most importantly, I have to decide where this tour will appear on my site. To do this, I'll enter the URL of the page, leaving off the start of the address, which is unnecessary. When you do this for your own site, you can leave off the domain name and copy everything after that. You may want the tour to appear on different similar pages. For example, you might have different versions of your catalogue with different filters applied by default. In those cases, you wouldn't want to set a static URL for the tour. Instead, you'd add a wildcard, so that any catalogue version will display the tour. A wildcard is added using the % symbol. Select this checkbox to enable the tour. It might be best to leave this unchecked while you're editing your tour, but I'll check it here so we can see the tour immediately. The next few options determine how the user tour appears to users, where they appear in relation to the item they refer to, what to do if an item isn't found, for example because it doesn't appear on that particular page, whether to include a backdrop to highlight the item you're pointing to, and whether the tour should move on when the user selects the target. Next, select the conditions under which the tour should be shown. For example, you could decide the tour should only be shown on content with a particular category, or to users with a specific role. You might use this to highlight aspects to other site administrators, or to add reminders to trainers on course pages that you don't want to show to learners. I'm happy with these settings, so I'll save changes. My user tour is now listed on this page. It's time to add my content. I'll click on the tour in the list, and then choose to add a new step. I need to tell the tour which item on screen I want to point to, or whether I want the tour to appear in the middle of the page. As this is my first step, I'll choose that option. I'll enter a title and content text for my step. Then I'll save my changes and add this step to my tour. I'll repeat the same process to add my next step. This time, I want to point out the current learning block, which I've added to the top of my catalogue, so that users can see all of their enrolled and visible learning in one place. I'll select a target type of block, then select current learning from the list of options. Blocks and other navigation elements are shown in this list, so you can easily find the item you want to highlight. As before, I'll enter the content of this step of my user tour, and then save. Let's imagine I've now added all of my steps. Before we look at the tour I've created, one final useful tip on this page is the option to force the tour to be displayed to all users again. By default, tours will only be shown once to each user, but if you make changes to your site, you might want to show the tour again. Selecting this option will reset the tour as if no users have ever used it, and everyone accessing the page will be shown the tour again. Now let's log in as a user and go to the catalogue. And you can see that the first step of the tour is displayed. It's positioned in the centre of the page and shows the title and the content text I added. On selecting the next button, the second step of the tour is displayed. It's positioned beneath the item it refers to, in this case the current learning block. So that's the basics of setting up and viewing a user tour. Why not add one to your Totara site today?